Hey guys, so we all know that eating pasta before a long run helps us to carbo load, but sometimes eating pasta week after week when we're training for a marathon can get pretty boring. So I've been trying to find different ways to incorporate carbs that aren't pasta into my dinner for the night before a long run. And right now I'm going to make a whole wheat pizza crust, and it takes some planning. I'm using the King Arthur flour recipe for a whole wheat pizza dough, and it actually has to sit overnight. So my dinner for tomorrow night will be the pizza. I have a 20 miler on Thursday, which is the next day. So I am making this tonight. It needs to sit in the fridge for 18 hours or longer, and then I will be making it tomorrow. On the King Arthur website, you can choose whether to measure in cups or grams or ounces. I like to use a scale when I cook or bake, and so I used the grams. First, you're going to need 340 grams of the King Arthur white whole wheat flour. You can use the organic. I'm using the stone ground white whole wheat flour, and measuring out 340 grams right into the bowl. Everything has to sit and kind of let the whole wheat soak into everything, so it all goes into one bowl all at once, which is really nice, especially if you're measuring. Okay, next is going to be 2 teaspoons of the instant yeast, and so for that I'm just going to use a teaspoon. I'm also going to use 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. I usually just use my kosher salt. I'm very used to baking with that. I hardly ever use the other salt anymore, and sometimes I wonder if I'm not getting enough iodine because it's a lot easier because it's 48, but I know it's all in the bowl. Next is 25 grams of olive oil. And then I need 28 grams of lukewarm orange juice. I have oranges that have been sitting in the fridge, so I put them on the counter for about an hour, hour and a half, and I'll just be grinding the juice directly in there. The reason they have the orange juice in it is because the whole wheat can taste a little bitter in the pizza, and so they've added the orange juice to cut down some of that and to enhance the flavor of the dough, which is pretty brilliant, and I never would have thought of that. So they have you add everything together, mix it well so that the yeast can get all in there, and so that everything kind of gets soaked up into the whole wheat for the kneading process to make that a little easier. To rest for 30 minutes, and then I will be back and we'll be mixing it in with the dough. Okay, so the timer just went off. It's been resting for 30 minutes in the mixing bowl, and I have the dough hook attached to my KitchenAid, and I'm just going to turn it on and knead this until it gets smooth and elastic and like a dough. So I mixed up the dough using the dough hook on my KitchenAid, about 2 minutes. It's formed a nice ball, cleaned the sides of the bowl up, and it's not too sticky. It's actually a really nice dough. I'm going to transfer it to a bowl and cover it for another 30 minutes. It's going to rest on the counter, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator where it's going to sit until tomorrow afternoon. It's the next day, and I just took the pizza dough out of the refrigerator. Oh, there goes my dishwasher. We're done. And I'm rolling it out, and I'm going to put it on a pizza stone instead of a pizza pan or anything like that. I kind of like the rustic look of a freeformed pizza. And we're going to cut up a bunch of veggies and put them on the pizza, and then let it rest and proof for 2 hours. It's going to get nice and puffy, and then we'll bake it. Okay, so I'm rolling out the dough now. It was still a little chilled from the refrigerator, so I had to push it a little bit to get it to go out, but it eventually did. And it was a nice dough, and it didn't stick to the counter, which I really like. Our vegetables all ready to go. We have some orange pepper, onion, 2 different kinds of mushrooms, and 3 different kinds of tomatoes, and then we have some asparagus. Pizza stone in the oven because it needs to heat up before you put the pizza on it. That way when it hits the dough, it starts cooking it right away. And I'm going to actually put the pizza on the back of this pizza pan so that it can proof and rise in the next 2 hours, and then I can just easily slide this onto the pizza stone so I don't burn myself, which I tend to do. Simple puree. I just pureed some tomatoes, and there's some onion in there, some garlic, and a little bit of chili powder. I made this for spaghetti probably 2 months ago and then put the leftovers in the freezer. When I thawed it, it was very, very runny. So I've drained the excess water off, and I'll be using the puree as a pizza topping. Okay, so I'm frying up the veggies before they go onto the pizza so that they're all nice and cooked, since the pizza doesn't actually bake for very long. So now the pizza has to proof for another 2 hours. I've already put the vegetables on top of it, and my stove comes with a proofer. So I put it in there, and it will sit for another 2 hours. And then when it comes out, I sprinkled it with the Parmesan cheese. The oven is preheating now. The stone is in the bottom of it. It's going up to 450 degrees. I put some extra spices on the pizza and some Parmesan cheese. That's a harder cheese, so it might take longer to melt. I found this awesome burrata with black truffle that I'm going to put on top of it after the pizza has been baking in the oven for 8 minutes. I'm going to take it out, put the burrata on it, and then it goes back in for another 8 or 9 minutes until the cheese melts. Okay, so the pizza has been in the oven for 8 minutes. I just took it out, and now I'm putting the burrata on top, and we'll just spread it around and then stick it back in the oven for another 8 or 9 minutes. And here we have the finished pizza.